Good morning, everyone. So, this is Unit 3, which we are going to start on the topic Schools of Muslim Law. We have done Sources of Muslim Law, and this is the lecture will be on the topic Schools of Muslim Law. So, let's start. See, there are two main schools of Muslim law, the Sunni and the Shia. Everyone is well aware about this thing. Now, the majority of Muslims are Sunnis, and hence, it is and that's a different thing. But anyway, first you stick on to this thing that there are two main schools of Muslim law, Sunni and Shia. I'll further explain what I was going to say. Now read from here. In Islam, the people have been divided into two sects having different views regarding certain aspect of Islam. Thus, the school of Muslim law can be broadly classified into Sunni and Shia. Then further, in Sunni sect there are four major schools, which are the Sunni sub schools, and then in Shia also we have further three sub schools. So these are the sub schools, and broadly it is divided into, the Muslim law can be broadly classified into Sunni and Shia. Now first let's understand what is the Sunni and Shia. There's a huge difference in it. Now in terms of, basic differences are, I'll explain the basic difference. Other than that, they are different. They have difference in respect to marriage, dower, talaq, and guardianship, maternity, maintenance, work, and so many things. But the basic difference is, Sunni school recognize the seat of Khalifa or the successor of the Prophet, right? Whereas Shia school, in Shiatis they recognize the seat of Imam, that is the leader. So in Sunni they recognize the seat of Khalifa, who was the successor of Prophet, whereas in Shias they recognize the seat of Imam. Then Khalif, in Sunni school, Khalif is a temporal ruler rather than the religious chief. And Imam in Shia school is known as the descendant of Prophet or father of Ali. Then in Sunni school, Khalif is also known as the successor of Prophet. And in Sunni school, Imam is the final interpreter of law on the earth. Right? So, Sunnis believe in the election of Caliph from the Jamaat, that is the society, whereas Shias do not believe in the election of Imam. This is the basic difference between Sunni and Shia. So I said, in Sunni school, it is recognized, they recognize the seat of Khalifa or the successor of Prophet, we call it. Whereas in Shia, they recognize the seat of Imam, that is the leader. Then Caliph is a temporal ruler rather than religious chief in Sunni school, but Imam is known as the descendant of Prophet or father of Ali. And Caliph is also known as the successor of Prophet in Sunni school. And in Shia, Imam is the final interpreter of law on the earth. So this is the basic difference between Sunni and Shia. Now, there are other differences also. Suppose in marriage or in talaq, in guardianship, in dower, every other thing there is a difference. So suppose in marriage, muta marriage is not legally recognized as valid in Sunni school, but in Shia, muta marriage is held legal. Or for marriage, which we call nikah in Muslims, so witnesses are essentially required at the time of nikah in Sunni school. But if you see in Shia, then witnesses are not essentially required. So these kind of differences are there. In some places, few things are required, in some they are not. Then Even in witnesses are not required at the time of talaq in Sunni school, but 2 witnesses are required for talaq in Shia school. Under Sunni school, talaq can be given orally or in writing, but in Shia school, maximum limit of dower is 500 dirham. So that is a different thing. But all I want to tell you is that there is a huge difference. Then in Sunni school, witnesses are not required at the time of pronouncing talaq. While they are pronouncing talaq, witnesses are not required. But in Shia, payment of this talaq, it must be pronounced orally and in words of, and witnesses are required while doing so. Right. Then talaq-e-bidda, talaq-ul-sunnat, they are recognized in Sunni school. I'll explain you about this talaq, every word later, when we'll be dealing with divorce section. But here I'm telling you the difference between Shia and Sunni. And talaq-ul-sunnat is one kind of form of talaq. It is recognized under Shia, but not recognized under talaq-e-biddat is not recognized in the Shia school. Only sunnat is recognized. Then all of these kind of things are there under Shia and Sunni school, which creates a huge difference. Then in Sunni sect, there are 4 major schools of Muslim law, which are Hanafi school, Maliki, Safi, and Hanbali. Now, what is this all about? See, in Hanafi, it is the most important school. Now, this school, if we start with Hanafi school, so this is the most popular one, and amongst the Muslim derives its name from its founder Abu Hanafi, right? And the school was founded by Abu Hanafi, and he laid the stress on ijma and istihad, and recognized the authority of the custom, which is urf. So this school basically relies on custom and precedent of Muslim community as the tradition of Prophet Muhammad. This is what the school is about, is relies on custom and precedent of Muslim community. Now this is because the Prophet had disallowed codification of his words and sayings, and hence whenever the Quran did not explain something, the school relied on prophets. What was the Prophet's tradition? Hidayah is the most authoritative book of the school. It covers topic like inheritance as a succession among the school. So this is the whole thing. So Hanafi is the most important school, and comes under Sunni sub schools, and it was founded by Abu Hanafi, and his major stress was over ijma, and this school basically relies on customs and precedent of Muslim community, which was the tradition of Prophet Muhammad. Then comes the Maliki school. Now this school derives its name from its founder Imam Malik bin Anas. Right? It was founded by Maliki. Now what was the main feature of the school? Were the powers of the head of the family over his wife, property, and over his children. So it originates amongst the same period of Hanafi school, but it flourished first in the city of Medina anyway. While the Hanafi school relies on ijma, now the Maliki school originated from Sunnah and Hadith. These two important sources give importance to sayings, teachings, customs, and tradition of Prophet Muhammad. So they also give importance to the saying, teachings, customs, and tradition of Prophet Muhammad. Right? Then comes Shafi school. Now this school originated, now Imam Shafi was the founder of this school. The spelling is like Safei. Alright. So this school originated from Muhammad bin Idris Shafi, who was a student of both Imam Malik and Imam Hanifi. The Muslim world considered him to be one of his most important jurists. Now he was the founder of doctrine of Qiyas, right? So ijma. Now what is ijma? That is the interpretation of jurist is the most important source of law in Shafi school. Interpretation of jurist. It also relies on customs of Muslim people. The Qiyas for source of law, which depends on analogical interpretation. We have done this, the Qiyas, in the first lecture, which depends on analogical interpretation by people originated from Shafi school. Then came Hanbali school, that was founded by Ahmad bin Hanbal, and what is important is that he laid stress on tradition and allowed very narrow margin to the doctrine of analogy, unlike Shafi school. So instead, he insisted on going back to Sunnah and Hadith to interpret the Quran. This was because in his opinion, the teachings and tradition of Prophet Muhammad matter more than people's interpretation. This was the whole thing about Hanbali, Shafi, and Maliki and Hanafi school. So, as I said, in Hanafi school, founded by Abu Hanafi, and he major focus was over Ijma, right? In Maliki, under Maliki school, it was founded by Maliki derives its name from founder Imam Malik bin Anas, and so on. And in Shafi school, it gets its name from Muhammad bin Idris Shafi, and he was the founder of the doctrine of Qiyas, right? Imam Shafi, and so the Hanbali. Now coming on to this point of Shia. In Shia, this was we dealt under Sunni sect, sub schools of Sunni school. Then under Shia sect, there is this Itna Ashriya, the Ijmalis, and the Zaidi. Now what is this? These are the principal Shia sub schools. What does they say? Now these schools are based on the following of Itna Ashriya laws. The first one, the follower of these schools are mostly found in Iraq and Iran, and in India also there is majority of Shia Muslim who follows the principle of Itna Ashri school. Now they are considered political questions, and this school is considered as the most dominant school of Shia Muslim. Then there is this Ismailis, right? Then is the Zaidi. So according to Ismaili school in India, there are two groups: the Khojas or Western Ismailis, which represent the follower of the present Aga Khan. Now who they consider as the 49th Imam in the line of Prophet. And the Bohras, that is the Western Ismailis, are divided into further parts. Now, so it is believed that it is considered that the follower of this school, they have a special knowledge of religious doctrine under Ismaili. Then the Zaidi, follower of this schools are not found in India but are major, they are found in South Arabia. But this sect of Shia school is dominating among all in Yemen, and now those who all follow this school, they are considered as political activists. So that is the whole thing about Shia sect and the Sunni sect. Now revising it, under Sunni sect we have Hanafi school, Maliki, Shafi, Hanbali, and under Shia sect we have Itna Ashriya, Ismailis, and Zaidi. And broadly, Muslim law is classified into Sunni and Shia school. So as I've explained it, there's a huge difference between, first the basic differences, if we revise and I repeat, the Sunni school is recognizes the seat of Caliph or the successor of the Prophet. Under Shia, they recognize the seat of Imam. So there is this difference. Then Caliph is temporal ruler rather than religious chief, and an Imam is also known as descendant of Prophet or father of Ali. Then Caliph is known as the successor of Prophet under Sunni school, and under Shia, Imam is the final interpreter of law on the earth. Right? Then this is the basic difference. Moving on to the marriage part, there is this muta marriage, which we will understand later. What is this muta marriage? But muta marriage is not legally recognized as valid under Sunni school, but on the other hand, it is recognized. It is held legal in Shia school. So basically, this muta marriage. See, the word muta means enjoyment use. So basically, this marriage was for pleasure or for a fixed period of time, and therefore it was known as a temporary marriage. You can basically understand it. Muta marriage as a temporary marriage. So this temporary marriage is not legally recognized as valid under Sunni school, but on the other hand, it is well recognized, held legal in Shia school. Right? Then under then for marriage, witnesses are required at the time of nikah, but witnesses are not required under nikah in Shia school, but in Sunni the witnesses are required. Then marriage relations are deemed either valid, irregular, or void. When we'll do with marriage, you will understand what is this. Marriages are valid, void, and irregular, but under Shia school, marriages are either valid or void. No irregularity is there. Consider. Right. So that's it for this lecture. In the next one, we will be doing about, this was the third chapter we have done of schools, sources we have done, and the next one will be starting with marriage, and then you'll further understand. We'll deal with definition, nature, capacities, classification, and what is the legal effects of marriages. After that, we'll be doing about dower, will, gift, waqf, preemption, and then the very important part of Muslim, that is dissolution of marriage under Muslim law, that is divorce. In fact, divorce is very important, so we can start with that as well, but we'll do with the marriage first. Thank you.